everyone, and welcome to ARIRANG News live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Let's take a look at the stories we are following at this hour. The search continues for the missing AirAsia flight that disappeared over the Java Sea. Objects spotted in the ocean yesterday turned out to be unrelated to the missing plane. The rescue operation for the burning ferry off the coast of Greece is complete. 10 people are confirmed dead. More than 400 passengers are brought to safety, but dozens are feared to be missing. More than 14 million visitors have made a trip to Korea this year. Topping the list by nationality were the Chinese. We'll tell you about the economic effect they are having. Officials have expanded the search area for the missing AirAsia plane, which was heading to Singapore from Indonesia, but so far no trace has been found. With this latest accident, the year of 2014 will likely be remembered as a torrid year for Malaysian airliners. For more, here's Shin Se-min.
Investigators believe the missing AirAsia passenger jet that vanished with 162 people on board crashed somewhere in the Java Sea. Indonesian officials say flight QZ8501 is likely at the bottom of the sea, a hypothesis based on the coordinates of the jet when the last contact was made.
The terrain is such that it becomes difficult to locate the missing plane, but there are chances that it could be at the bottom of the sea.
On Monday, Australian aircraft reported seeing suspicious objects roughly 1,000 kilometers away from where the jet lost contact, but it turned out to be unrelated. The missing jet is the third plane from a Malaysia-based airline to have been involved in an air accident or mystery this year alone. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared in March in what has become one of the world's biggest unsolved mysteries in recent years. The plane that was carrying nearly 240 people was flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing when it disappeared without a trace. Not a single piece of debris has been found till this day. In July, Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 that was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was shot down over Ukraine by what many believe to be a missile fired by pro-Russian rebels. Russia denied any involvement and blamed Ukraine. The 298 people on board all perished. Up until this past weekend, AirAsia had a very impressive safety record and had never lost a plane. Hope has receded that any survivors will be found, but the search goes on. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The rescue of passengers from a burning ferry in the Adriatic Sea is now over. The Italian Coast Guard says 10 people died while some 430 people were brought to safety. But with that number falling short of the original list of 478 names, there are fears that many more could be missing. Officials say they are still in the process of verifying the exact number, adding that boats and helicopters will remain in the area to continue searching for possible victims. The investigation into the exact cause is still underway. The public prosecutor in Italy has requested the seizure of the ship. Now, shifting gears a bit here, following South Korea's proposal of talks to North Korea on Monday, some experts say this will serve as a turning point for inter-Korean relations, while others said it was a mere repetition of the past. Our Hwang Sung-hee had a chance to talk to an expert from the latter group. Take a look.
Will South Korea's surprise proposal for talks give fresh momentum to inter-Korean ties? Professor David Kang at the University of Southern California sees it as a routine exchange of dialogue offers.
My sense is that both South and North Korea are looking for ways that they can improve ties without having to give up too much. And that's the problem, is that both sides are willing to make proposals. But I don't actually see a whole lot of new ideas on the table at this point.
He says as much as the two Koreas may want better ties, neither is willing to risk too much. That's why Pyongyang could consider Seoul's idea of more cultural exchanges in time for next year, which marks the 70th year the peninsula has been divided.
I think there's a lot more possibility for joint cultural events, the Asian Games, a soccer match, events like that. Those are relatively apolitical, and they're relatively easy to do, and they don't involve major policy changes.
Professor Kang sees South Korean Unification Minister Lee Gil-jae's offer as a carefully calculated move ahead of Kim Jong-un's New Year's Day speech, in which he is expected to express his willingness to improve inter-Korean ties.
You know, I think the Minister Yu, has been searching for a way that he could try and actually move policy on North Korea forward. So I think that in this way, this is not too ambitious, but I think it's a very careful attempt by Minister Yu. And to that extent, I guess that North Korea would take it seriously. As I said before, I'm not sure that they will actually accept it.
Nonetheless, the expert does not expect Pyongyang to enter a cycle of provocation anytime soon, saying there's nothing particular on the horizon that will bother the regime that much. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
And staying with North Korea, today marks the 3rd anniversary of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un officially taking over control of the regime's military. As the North celebrates the occasion, it's ever more clear that he has a firm grip on power. Lee Ji-yoon has more.
North Korea has one of the world's biggest armies, and Tuesday marks the 3rd anniversary since its leader Kim Jong-un was officially appointed to the position of Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army. With eyes on how the young leader will continue to craft his leadership in the years to come, Kim has largely cemented his place as a powerful military leader. The North's official Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday that Pyongyang held a national meeting to further pledge their loyalty to Kim. At the meeting, Army General Lee Young-gil praised Kim as a, quote, brilliant commander who's training the army to be politically, ideologically, and morally strong. Earlier this year, Kim reshuffled the cabinet, promoting 4-star General Hyun-kyung as the minister of the Korean People's Army in an attempt to strengthen his grip on the military. Meanwhile, the KCNA reported on Tuesday that the North Korean leader observed female soldiers' military drills along with his sister, Kim Yo-jong. This is the first time that his sister had joined Kim publicly to oversee military exercises, and analysts say this might signal that she is rising in the ranks in support of her brother's reign. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
The dates for North Korea's 5th annual amateur golf tournament next year are out. The DPRK Amateur Golf Open will be held on September 6th and 7th. The event, sponsored by the UK-based Lupin Travel Agency, invites players from all over the world. They will get a chance to play at North Korea's only open golf course, the Pyongyang Golf Complex. The travel package starts at just over $1,100 per person. North Korea started hosting the golf tournament in 2011 as a means to bring in foreign currency. In the year 2012, for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. The first time the number of overseas visitors broke the 10 million mark was in 2012, and fast forward 2 years now, we are seeing numbers heading towards 15 million. And experts say the economic effect of that number is equivalent to exporting about 500,000 Hyundai Sonata sedans. For this report, here's Kim Min-ji.
Korea is fast becoming a hot tourist destination. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, the number of foreign visitors to Korea this year sped past a new record high of 14 million this week. That's up more than 16% from a year ago and marks the fastest pace of growth in a decade. After surpassing the 10 million mark in 2012, thanks in part to the popularity of Korean pop culture, the figure has been on a steady rise. As for nationality, Chinese tourists top the list. Boosted by a spike in visitors from the National Day holiday in October, the total number is expected to surpass 6 million by the end of the year. Japan was next on the list, followed by the United States. Korea also attracted more visitors from Hong Kong, Thailand, and Russia this year compared to last year. So just how much tourism revenue does this translate into? The tourism organization says almost $18 billion, which is up more than 20% from last year. The organization now has a goal of attracting 20 million tourists by 2017, and one thing they're working on is to boost services to cater to the growing number of Chinese visitors.
We plan to enhance the standards of Chinese guides to address the rise in Chinese tourists and improve services at travel agencies that deal with Chinese visitors.
The tourism organization also pledged to step up efforts to satisfy tourists on an individual level so that Korea becomes a destination that people want to visit again. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
One of the election pledges made by President Park Geun-hye was to achieve 70% of employment rate. But there are chronic problems the labor market faces. If radical changes are not made soon, the labor minister says Korea is going to face much bigger issues down the road. Here's Connie Lee with more.
The push is on for a complete overhaul of the nation's labor laws. In an interview with Korea's Chosun Daily, Lee Ki-kwon, the minister in charge of employment and labor, said that if Korea does not change its labor market regulations by the middle of next year, we will face serious problems. The minister is speaking against the backdrop of chronic labor problems facing the nation, such as a high youth unemployment rate and a large number of contract or temporary workers. Korea's rigid labor market has long been a major issue. Youth unemployment stands at 8%, much higher than the overall jobless rate. And the number of contract workers is more than 6 million. That's 22% of all workers here in Korea. And compare that with the average number of contract workers in other OECD nations, which stands at less than 12%. To tackle this issue, the government has proposed a set of plans to improve working conditions for temporary workers. This includes making sure contract workers aged 35 or older can work at the same company for up to 4 years instead of the current 2. However, these new proposals are being met with criticism from both labor unions and employers.
If the employees get laid off after 4 years of work, where will they go? It will be harder for them to get a job.
This plan places an even greater burden on companies.
While recognizing the need to find some common ground, the Minister of Employment and Labor called for companies to be more flexible in the face of greater global competition. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Recent reports point out that Korea is losing ground to China in major export items like mobile phones, while local manufacturers are already having a hard time competing with those in Japan. The government has laid out plans to tackle the issue, but they've got a long way to go. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Earlier this year, China-based Xiaomi took the crown in its local market as the biggest smartphone supplier, replacing Samsung Electronics. What's more surprising is that China's major smartphone makers have outpaced Samsung and LG in terms of global market share. And experts say manufacturers in Korea are not just facing risks coming from China, but also Japan, which is introducing aggressive marketing strategies thanks to the weak yen. They add that the overall competitiveness of the Korean manufacturing sector is on the brink of a downward spiral in the face of an aging population and low birth rates. But some pundits say Korea should turn the crisis into an opportunity so that the local manufacturing sector can make another big leap forward. Take the United States, for example. The government has developed 45 research centers aimed at bringing innovation into the domestic manufacturing industry. The Korean government also announced a plan to breathe new life into the manufacturing sector in June, calling it the Manufacturing Industry 3.0 Innovation Strategy. But the detailed plans that the government promised to lay out by the end of this year have not come yet, while local companies hesitate to make investments amid a sluggish domestic economy. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Well, Korea's current account surplus hit a record high last month, continuing its surplus streak into a 33rd straight month. The Bank of Korea says the surplus reached $11.4 billion in November, surpassing the previous record set in October last year. Both exports and imports dropped from a year earlier, but inbound shipments shrank at a faster rate due to falling oil prices, with imports logging $40 billion and exports slightly over $50 billion. The nation's accumulated current account surplus has totaled almost $82 billion so far this year, nearing its annual forecast of $84 billion. Well, the Korean economy is showing signs of recovery, but picking up a decent head of steam is proving to be quite challenging. Statistics Korea says the country's output across all industries edged up 0.1% in November from October, marking the second straight month of increase. It did slow from a 0.3% monthly increase in October, though. The rise in November was driven by production in the manufacturing and mining sector that saw output rise 1.3% during this period, helped by demand for cars and semiconductors. However, when compared to November last year, the figure was down 0.5%. Now, Monday was the last plenary session of the year, and lawmakers passed nearly 150 bills on that day. Grabbing most of the attention were 3 real estate bills aimed at propping up the housing market. Kwon So-ah has our next report.
In the last plenary session of the year, Korea's 2 political parties agreed to relax 3 real estate regulations. They hope the bills will help perk up Korea's property market. One will do away with a tax that acts as a burden for owners of redeveloped properties. Currently, the government can demand up to 50% of the profits made from the rise in value of a redeveloped property. For example, if an apartment owner sees their property value increase by $90,000 after the house was rebuilt, they might have to pay up to $45,000 in taxes. But the new bill eradicates that provision starting next year for a period of 3 years. Another change deals with the houses being rebuilt in the outskirts of Seoul, where redevelopment is limited due to concerns of population density. Right now, homeowners are only allowed to claim 1 house if in these areas. But the new bill allows them to claim up to 3 houses. They hope this will encourage homeowners to rent out more of their properties, which will help supply more rental homes. Apart from plans to boost the property market, the government also plans to work on stabilizing the housing market for middle and lower income households. This includes launching a special committee that will focus on settling disputes between tenants and landowners. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
It's no longer an unusual scene to see twins in Korea. The proportion of twins, triplets, and other multiple births among the total number of childbirths has increased 3-fold in 20 years. Statistics Korea says the so-called multiple births accounted for 3.3% of babies born last year. In 1993, that figure was at 1.1%. The increase is attributed to more Korean women turning to fertility treatments. Obstetricians say while there is just a 0.1% chance of having a multiple birth by natural pregnancy, the chance rises to 25% for pregnancy through in vitro fertilization. Well, we brought you many stories on performances and festivals in the latter half of the year, but the first half was marred by the Ferry sinking tragedy. Because of that, the industry is said to have suffered overall, but one sector has quietly been providing a place for comfort. Our Im Yoon-hee will tell us all about that today. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon, right. So unfortunately, we did see the cancellation of quite a few performances and festivals due to the Seoul Ferry disaster. Now, the ripple effect is still being seen in the arts and culture scene even to this day. But one sector, the original musical sector, is reporting that they have some steady sales as well. Take a look at this next report.
This year saw many empty stages and even more empty seats. Plays, musicals, and shows were canceled out of respect for a country in mourning, and ticket sales were affected. Attendance rates at performances were said to have dropped an estimated 20%.
This year, musicals were affected more by external factors than internal factors. The impact of the Seoul Ferry tragedy shrank the consumption of art and culture, thereby burdening the market for musicals as well.
But even in the thick of some sad times, one sector of the industry seems to still be holding the light. The original Korean musical Frankenstein sold a surprising number of tickets earlier this year.
They take internationally well-known novels and turn them into musicals, which gives them a huge advantage.
Alongside original productions, this year also saw the import of many famous international musicals, licensed to Korean production teams. Musicals such as Kinky Boots and Once were hits with Korean audiences.
The diversity and subject matter of Korean musicals is maturing, and the people behind them are now being recognized internationally.
And on the Korean play production front, domestic companies like the Kim Soo-do Project have avoided being dragged into the slump. However, this holiday season, there was a fallout between many of the Korean play associations and the Korea Performing Arts Center. That's now been resolved, but a few blemishes still mark the relationships. Next year has another wave of famous international musical performances in store that will hopefully continue to bring new life to the industry.
So we talked about it a couple of days ago, or if last week, we talked about the foreign musicals showing in Korea. Currently, you mentioned Kinky Boots and Once.
Right, so a couple of the big ones that are being shown right now and are quite popular. So interestingly, with Kinky Boots, it actually has an interesting story about how it came in. So the entertainment giant CJENM actually invested over $1 million into the production of the musical, and it actually won 6 Tony Awards that year. And so when it came into Korea, it was highly anticipated, and it has been doing well so far, but it'll be showing through February, so we'll have to see exactly where it goes.
And you mentioned in the last part of your report, you do say that we have a wave of other foreign musicals coming in next year as well.
Right, so for the musical fans, very exciting news. We have quite a few very large, very famous musicals coming into Korea. So starting with Gone with the Wind, that'll be showing after a long wait. I guess it ran into some troubles over like 4 or 5 years, but it is finally being staged. We also have Robin Hood, Notre Dame, and they're actually showing the original cast with Notre Dame. A couple of their musicals, Zorro, Marie Antoinette, those are a couple of popular hits that have shown in Korea before and are being restaged again next year as well.
Okay, so for those of you out there who are a big fan of musicals, then next year will definitely be a year to book your tickets in advance.
Hopefully the industry will grow some more.
Okay, thank you very much, Uni, for today's report.
Always a pleasure.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Park here with your latest weather forecast. We're seeing comfortably mild weather conditions here in Korea, but we are not able to enjoy them because of high levels of fine dust in the atmosphere. So it's best to stay indoors if you can, especially for the elders and children. Although the skies are looking clear, advisories are in effect for the capital and the Gangwon province, where readings are about 176 micrograms per cubic meter, which is about 2 to 3 times higher compared to the normal levels. However, nationwide rain or snow is in store for tomorrow, which should clear up in the air, but and it looks like we'll begin our 2015 with a cold wave, with the morning temperatures dropping down to minus 10 degrees Celsius here in the capital. But until then, let's take a look at the readings for today. So we'll peak at 6 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will be higher and mild at 11 and 12 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island will get up to 14, Dokdo hits down to 8, while Mangkungang is just at negative 4 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, that does it for this edition of our newscast. From me and the rest of the team in Seoul, thank you very much for staying with us. We'll be back with more updates at 4 p.m. Korea time.